home of Southern sports and talk. Noonan, Sharpsburg, Franklin.
You're walking, shopping, or on your favorite trail. You get that feeling somebody's coming up on you. What do you do to be prepared in today's world? Hi, I'm Holly Reese. I'm the founder of Warrior Defenders. As a certified tactical self-defense instructor, I'm specializing in women's self-defense. All women of all ages have the ability to learn how to defend themselves effectively. With technical drills to build their survival skills, you can be your own hero. Classes and private seminars are available. Learn today to have a safer tomorrow. WarriorDefenders.com.
This is Margie from Connecting Hearts Network. I'd like you to take just a moment and listen to Linda Kirkpatrick explain to you what Family Patterns Matters is all about.
Family Patterns Matter works with youth and their families to help overcome barriers that prevent their success. We meet twice a month with mentoring, tutoring, teaching life skills, resilience, gratitude, and kindness. We also bring music and art therapy. Please visit our website at www.familypatternsmatter.org.
Hello, I'm Pina Payne with Contour Mortgage, and we're so excited. We have just moved to this new company, and we are located at 560 Noonan Crossing Bypass in Noonan next to Art and Jake's, and we have some great products. Our interest rates are better than any other companies, and we also have some great products for the VA. We can do a better deal for you with fees than any other company. We have a lot of different kind of programs.
Shopping for insurance doesn't have to be stressful. I'm Christy, owner of Ellsworth Insurance, located here in Noonan, Georgia. We're an independent agency with access to multiple carriers for home, auto, life, health, and commercial insurance. We're your one-stop shop for your insurance needs. Visit our website at www.insurewithellsworth.com or call the office at 770-755-7053 to schedule an appointment. We look forward to meeting you soon.
Moving is a big decision. Selling or buying a home in any market, but especially today's, can raise a lot of questions. Hi, I'm Amy with Killingsworth Realty. My husband Todd and I serve the Coweta and local area. Our purpose at our first meeting is to learn your goals, answer questions, and provide resources so that you can make the best decision for you and your family. Find us online at killingsworthrealty.com or call 678-525-0047 to schedule a free consultation today to discuss your real estate needs. You don't have to do this alone.
It's now time for Heart to Heart Radio, presented by Connecting Hearts Network, connecting women to one another and resources. Now here's your host, Margie Conway.
Hi, I'm Margie Conway, and this is the Connecting Hearts Network. You know, I just happen to think I don't have a sponsorship thing for the Creative Heart Studios on there, so I have to make one to let you know what we do at the studio more often. Exactly. But one thing that we love to do at the studio and at Connecting Hearts is talk to people and get their stories, because I know their stories that they share inspire you guys. So today we have Jennifer J. Jeets, right? Yes. Close. Yes. All right. And, of course, we have Linda Kirkpatrick, because she brings in awesome guests for us. And so I'm going to give Linda just a second to tell you how she met Jennifer, and then we'll move on.
Well, I met Jennifer when I was getting a massage at Sea Glass Therapy through the program that gave us these massages after the tornado for those of us that worked with tornado victims. And I have to tell you, it was the most incredible massage I had, and it really wasn't a massage. It was a craniosacral treatment, yes. and it was incredible. I felt so good, and of course, like when we are getting our hair done or our nails done, we start talking, and I heard an incredible story, and I knew she needed to share it with our audience. It's awesome, and just listen to her and know how important what she says is to each and every one of us.
You're so sweet.
We thank you for coming today, Jennifer.
Thank you
It does. Linda will meet somebody and she will call me up and she's, I've got somebody for you. I've got somebody. And I'm like, okay. She's, what weeks do we have open? So it's always good when Linda meets someone and brings me in. So we're glad to have you. I know from just the tiny bit of conversation we had that you interview for the Noon and Coweta magazine.
I write for them, yes.
You write for them?
So
and apparently you do massage at Sea Glass Therapy.
I do. Yes.
Is there anything else like that you do we should know about?
I make jewelry with
Cool.
crystals. But for the most part, it's writing and massage therapy. Those are. I did go to school to be an end-of-life doula as well.
Okay.
And so looking to slowly, as things organically flow, bring that work in, because I'm very passionate about building beautiful hospice, as we'll get into with the needs that people have that are unmet in terms of end-of-life care.
Right.
And I'm also going to school to be a mind-body coach, so that incorporates somatic healing. It's very gentle, but in terms of what has worked for me in my own healing,
Right.
I've felt that connection for how effective it is, and so I'm passionate to bring those tools to help people.
And that's exactly what happens most often, is what helps us. We become passionate about and we're willing to share it. That's how I ended up at the studio and on the radio and everything else. Now, you mentioned that you're in school to be an or have gone to school to be an end-of-life doula?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. I know a little bit of the story that you're going to share with us. Did you do that before or after?
I did it after.
Okay, because I've heard that from a couple of people that is the journey they went on as that happened. So you have an interesting journey that I understand with that started at COVID. And so that set you on a journey that most of us did not have to go on, but quite a few people did at that time. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, definitely. So it was 2021, and my daughter was, going back to school. We were I felt like things were kind of, I guess, getting a little bit back to normal. We'd gone through a lot of time not being sick and everything was great. And then all of a sudden we all started getting sick. And my daughter and I had very different symptoms than my husband had. And unfortunately it started with, breathing and congestion and things that I was not experiencing. My daughter got over it very quickly, but it was just this enigma. Many people talk about that. Like, it just didn't make sense that he was 40.
Right.
It didn't make sense because we had known so many people who were, like all different ages that were recovering, and all of a sudden he wasn't. And, we were doing everything we could at home to get him better. And, and I try everything very naturally as much as possible, and then I turned to over-the-counters, and we did, a televisit with the doctor, and we tried everything possible, and then it turned out that his oxygen level was getting very low, so he was having some very dangerous symptoms and hallucinating and things, and that was when I knew, okay, we need to absolutely take him in, and all of this happened within the span of like maybe 3 or 4 days, where it was like just all of a sudden it went from like, I think we can get him better to we need to get him into the hospital. Right. And then they got him in, and we had to say goodbye, and then they took him in, and with COVID and the rules in place, we weren't able to go into the hospital with him, but he had an iPad, so we would video chat with him. And it turned out he was diagnosed very quickly with COVID pneumonia, and they got him on oxygen, and he was feeling better, and he was optimistic. But as he was in the hospital, and the COVID pneumonia was unfortunately just really hard on his body, there were some other underlying symptoms we didn't know that he had. And then over the course of just under 2 weeks, it progressed, and it was definitely a roller coaster, where there were days that presented like he was going to be getting better, and then he started to struggle, and by the end of it, he had to get put on a vent, and I was so, I was so lucky that one of my colleagues at Seaglass was very blunt with me because they had experienced the loss of a family member with COVID, and they said, if they put him on the vent, talk to him like that's the last time. And so I was grateful. I mean, that's a hard thing to hear, but I took that knowledge, and when they called me and said they're going to put him on the vent, I woke up my daughter, she was 8 at the time, and, we'd only been video chatting with her dad this whole time, and so I woke her up, and I didn't tell her anything other than, do you just want to talk to Daddy? And she said hi, and she told him she loved him, and he could see us, and he could gesture, and that was about it. And so, he just like kind of smiled and kind of like gave her a thumbs up, and I made sure just to talk with him, keep him calm, and then we had to hang up. And then it was after that, pretty quickly, that he ended up having a heart attack. And then I get a call from the doctor saying, you need to come in, and this is it, and unfortunately, the way that some doctors deliver news is not
absolutely right.
You would want to hear. It's very blunt, and that's hard. But on the other hand, I think looking back, I needed blunt because I was in denial that this was the end, for sure. So my friend came and picked us up. I did not tell my daughter what was happening. She was so young. So my friend drove us, dropped me off at the hospital and took my daughter to her house. And the whole time I just thought, okay, he's got COVID. They're finally letting me in, but they told me over the phone that they weren't going to let me in the room with him. And so I just really meditated on that and was like, I need to stay as calm as I possibly can so that I can be allowed in that room. I just thought, like, maybe they're worried I'm going to make a scene or something or be trouble. Like, I didn't know. My mind was in 1,000 places. But I just stayed calm. And I have been with many people who are passing. I took care of my mom in hospice. I've had clients in massage work who were in hospice. I was not a stranger to death. It is painful, and it is so difficult and incredibly hard to bear.
Right.
But it happens. And so I went into that going, he needs me to be there, and this is about him. And so I got in to the room, just with just letting the doctor know, I am okay. Just let me hold his hand. Yeah. And they let me. They gowned me up, put a mask on me and my gloves, and I got in the room and I looked at them all and I said, I know that's protocol, but I already had COVID, so I'm just going to take all this off now. And they're not going to stop you. It was just protocol. So they were so kind. Honestly, there was an amazing group of people, and held his hand. And, at that point, he'd already had a heart attack and machines were working for him. And so I spent, the rest of that day with him, and he passed, and it was, talk about, like I said, I've been with so many people that have died, but to have that be your spouse.
Oh, I can't imagine.
This is like all of my thought. I just I was thinking of so many different things and what it was impacting and how in the world I was going to go on. This was our provider and our rock. And this was my daughter's father. I have 2 grown sons who absolutely adored him too. And he was such an incredible stepfather to them, and an incredible grandfather to my granddaughter. And my daughter-in-laws adored him. And it was all of these things, just thinking in those moments, what we're losing, and it was so surreal. And I went through, I think, 2 boxes of Kleenex. I just had Kleenex all over the bed. I was crying, and then I would laugh. I would think of funny stories. I would just sat and talked with him is what it was I think maybe 6 hours I sat in that room, and they let me just take time.
That is great that they let you, because we have so many other stories about ones that did not get to. But they weren't trying to be calm and and look for, like you said, that was about him at that point.
It was about him,
right?
And that was my goal. Was just I'm a firm believer, like, in anybody who's passing, like they deserve comfort and love.
Right.
I didn't want him to feel any fear, you know, and that was the most important thing. Just thinking, like, this transition to wherever the next place is, that, you know, all of us have different faiths and different beliefs on what that is, but I thought he deserves this moment, because all of those other experiences the past 2 weeks have been so traumatic and so terrifying, but in those last moments, somebody just really just deserves comfort.
And I've been with my grandmother and my aunt as they passed. One of them was from cancer, and one of them was from heart failure. But I understand what you're saying there. You know, with my aunt, we had a room full of people there because we had enough notice and we knew what was going on. But it's like you said, he was the provider for your family.
Mm-hmm.
He was all these roles that our spouse should be. And that is a tremendous loss to you. Mm-hmm. And how long ago? 2021. So
it's coming up on 2 years. 2 years. So it was September 18th, 2021. Okay. So we're coming up on 2 years now. And yeah, I mean, picking up the pieces is challenging and definitely different for every scenario.
Right.
You know, depending on if you are married, if you have, you know, the opportunity to get Social Security for your children, that makes a big difference. If, you know, some people don't, we were very fortunate, and we did for my daughter. And, you know, I did have my massage career and my writing, but I had only done those with COVID. I had, like, pulled way back and then was starting to work a little bit again. And this propelled me to be like, oh, okay, I'm the only one that is in charge of this. And it wasn't as big of a problem to me as who's going to fix all the things that are breaking in the house. Like, I'm not a fixer of things. I call my son and I video chat him. I don't know how many times, and I've cried, and I'm like, I don't know how to put a new toilet seat on my toilet. And that might sound funny, but I just don't. My brain does not like to fix things like that. And so, you know, and he would talk me through it, or, you know, my kids are amazing. And right after PJ died, both of them came down. They worked off of each other's schedules. One came down immediately the next morning to help us, and then my other son came down a few days later. But my oldest son is a firefighter paramedic, and he was in school when PJ got sick, and he continued in school after PJ died. We were all really adamant, like, he couldn't stop that, because, you know, PJ wouldn't want him to. And that's a big thing. Like, all of us are the kind of people, like, we don't stop. You know, we are like, that's a really hard thing. And I don't judge everybody's got, like, their way of handling things, but I'm pretty determined, you know. And my son is too. He's great. Both of them are great. Yeah. But the firefighter, like, he knew to come down with Gatorade and Kleenex and food. Yeah. You know, I had no idea what shock was until the morning after, when, you know, my daughter and I had stayed up all night crying and holding each other. I jumped into that, but, like, telling her was the worst possible thing in the whole world. And, you know, something that probably is maybe a little too hard to share, but just knowing that telling a child that their parent died is horrendous. But the next morning, getting her big brother and his wife, and they were on our porch, and all four of us just hugged and cried. And one thing I love about our family is we always find a way to smile or laugh. And this thing developed in these big hugs that we would do, where my daughter, who is only 8, was very short and everyone else is tall. Yeah. And she would somehow end up in the middle of our hugs. And at one point, we heard a little voice, and we did these hugs all the time. It was so many hugs through this comforting of the initial loss. All of a sudden, we heard this little voice during one of the hugs go, "I can't breathe."
We have those in our family. Yes.
And so my daughter's name is Misha, and so I started calling it the Mish check. And so we would do the big hug, And then we would be, crying and just consoling each other. And then at the end of it, when you're just kind of winding down, you're like, all right, we're going to let go of this hug. I would say, Mish, check. And she would laugh. Mm-hmm. And it was just really a beautiful moment in all of it, just celebrating, I think, love. Just like we have this support, this intense support.
And we were, I haven't lost a spouse, but the Aunt Brenda that I mentioned, that was the rock in our family on my mom's side. I mean, she had been very instrumental in raising me and my children when things were going on. And when she passed, even though it had been a 4-year cancer battle, when she actually passed, it set our family, it floored us. I mean, we were not prepared. We could not even speak her name without everybody busting out in tears. Mm-hmm. And my grandson and granddaughter were very young and were very close to her because she would watch them after school. They really struggled very, very badly, and none of us were prepared to be able to help them. Mm-hmm. And I understand from talking to Linda about your story that you found help for your daughter. Yes. And so can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So besides having an amazing therapist that we go to, we got her into a program called Kate's Club. Okay. And that has been so instrumental in helping her, because that program gets children who have lost a sibling or a caregiver, somebody close to them, and they have this support. And so we meet once a month. Right now the meetings are at Corral off Roscoe Road, and the group is phenomenal. And then the parents, we all get together for what's called a park bench. So we'll sit for the 2 hours and talk with each other, laugh and cry and all the things, because we're all having these shared experiences where we truly understand, and the kids too. And so for my daughter, that has been phenomenal, and I'm so proud of her. Through all of this, I wanted to teach all of my kids how we process through grief, because nobody is given the tools. And like you mentioned with your family, everyone is completely floored and they don't know how to pick it back up. And I feel like, unfortunately, in the Western culture, we've done a disservice in that. I think other cultures have learned to talk about grief in a really healthy way. And I am not disregarding or downplaying how painful it is, but we do need to have conversations. And, and I don't know how many people, including myself, thought, oh, we're too young to worry about a will, or, and unfortunately, in places like Georgia, if you don't have a will, you get sent to probate court.
Absolutely. My grandson's grandmother, my stepson's grandmother did have a will, and it's still in probate.
Yes. And that, on top of trying to figure out how you're going to pay your bills and coping with all of the things, maybe the person you lost had all the passwords to everything. There's so many aspects to cleaning and doing the housekeeping, and all of those logistical things afterwards, that on top of mourning, sometimes you don't have a chance to mourn right away. I don't think you really do at all. I mean, you're jumping into planning funerals, you're cleaning up the mess, and later it hits, and then you grieve again. And that's where that it's not linear, because you don't have time to really process. You're in shock. You're not eating, you're not drinking, you're not sleeping, and you have to plan the funeral and put the pictures for the displays together and figure out, I remember even my son would text me and just say, did you feed the dog? Did you take a shower? And
a friend of mine who had a very close sudden loss in her family posted something she had gotten from somebody on Facebook the other day, and it was like she just wanted to let people know that when you call and you give your condolences and you say, what can I do, that at this moment she didn't know what she was going to do, so she didn't know what to tell you.
Absolutely.
And so somebody had just went and picked up groceries and dropped them off, said, I brought you groceries, it's at your house. So instead of asking what can I do, we just do something.
Yes.
Yeah.
I cannot. I love how compassionate everybody is in those roles and asking what can I do to help. But unfortunately, when you're in shock and your brain is not working, our brains will not work functioning for at least a year. I've read even up to like 5 years. You know, things change and you struggle, and we don't know what we need. I didn't know.
Right.
One friend ordered me very healthy too. It was wonderful. I forget the company, but it was like pre-made meals. It was very healthy because she knew like we tried to eat pretty clean, and she sent this. So every week I would get these meals, and it was like just like mindless. I just had to heat it up, and it was the most amazing because it was just like what I needed. I looked at recipes and I couldn't read. My brain just wasn't processing anything at first, and we don't know what we need, and that could hurt people's feelings if we tell them. And I worry I might have hurt some people's feelings saying I don't know what I need, but I absolutely didn't. And I also realized how I was trying so hard to keep in touch with everyone that was caring, but I was so spread thin, you know, and I couldn't. I was just pulled in so many directions and trying to, I think in all of it, teach other people how to talk to me.
That's true. That needs to be done. We don't do that. I mean, I've talked with one of our sponsors is her husband owns Hillcrest Chapel. And then we have a couple of people we've had on the show about end-of-life issues and things they would talk about. And I'm all for pre-planning and having everything down and written down. And like Joe and them at Hillcrest has a great book, so I'm giving Joe a plug. If you need a pre-planning book, I have some at the studio. It's just fantastic. I'm all for doing that simply because my grandmother and my aunt and my mother did not have one. And so I am the one that was responsible for everything, and it would have been much more helpful if I'd had an idea of what was going on. Yeah.
My mom had a long illness, and we had those hard conversations, and we planned everything out. Yeah. And I know that can sound terrifying to people to think of the concept.
Yes.
But in the moment of, you know, when my mom, who had a long illness, did finally pass, everything was planned out, and we could just sit with our grief and honor her and have this beautiful, you know, funeral for her without the mess of trying to plan it. Versus with my husband, we had nothing planned, and all of a sudden I'm trying to figure out all of these things when I didn't feel like it, and I was just wishing that I could just sit home and, you know, hold my dog and cuddle my daughter and not deal with any of it.
I'm all for pre-planning, and it's my father-in-law passed last Thanksgiving. And he and my mother-in-law, she had passed a couple of years before, but they did have their funerals and everything pre-planned and prepaid and all that.
Yes.
But they were very responsible people financially wise, but they had 4 children and they didn't have all of that planned and set out. So while we were out there, I ended up being the mean person in charge of saying, okay, here's what we're doing. And afterwards, my brother-in-law was, thank you for doing that. I don't think we could have done it. But it's when it happens suddenly, we don't have any idea. And so with children, it's important that you actually think about those things, whether you want to or not. What are you going to do for your children? How are they going to be without?
Yeah, 100%. That, yes. I mean, now, you know, that's gotten me to, I already have my attorney because of probate court. But yeah, that's, on my list of things that I got done immediately. Because you don't want whoever is left after, a unexpected death. I think in long-term illness, people are going to plan a little more, but in something where there is really, you're not expecting it. There isn't planning, and nobody thinks at 40 or, I mean, even my mom was 72, and that's still, in many ways, I was like, oh, I felt like she still had more time here, you know? So yeah, I think it's really important, and you know, where are the children going to go? What goals do you have for their education, and where are they going to live? I mean, that could look like so many things, and people, one thing in Georgia that I don't know if any other states have this law is without a will, the surviving children share in the property with their surviving parents.
Right.
So in my case, I actually had to pay my daughter a percentage of the equity in my cars, which is crazy to me because
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Everyone should Google it. Nobody believes me until they Google it, and then they say, oh, and then they go make a will. It is absolutely true. And I have heard cases where, what if one of the spouses bought the house and didn't have the other one on the house note or on the deed? They've actually had to pay their children part of the equity in their house. And that could be a disaster because that might mean they have to sell. So it's a very strange law that I feel is backwards for nowadays. I don't know why that's there. There must be
Probably
some...
because it's Georgia. I love it here, but
but it's frustrating. And so if I just want to help people with that, like prevent these things, because that's another financial drain. Trying and it just makes no sense. It makes no sense. This is my child. I'm taking care of her. I'm driving her in this vehicle, and I just had to pay her. I don't know. So that one was a surprise. But, I think that...
All right, we're going to take a break just for a second, and then we'll move on with some more great talk with Jennifer. This is Margie from Connecting Hearts Network. I'd like you to take just a moment and listen to Linda Kirkpatrick explain to you what Family Patterns Matters is all about.
Family Patterns Matter works with youth and their families to help overcome barriers that prevent their success. We meet twice a month with mentoring, tutoring, teaching life skills, resilience, gratitude, and kindness. We also bring music and art therapy. Please visit our website at www.familypatternsmatter.org.
Hello, I'm Pina Payne with Contour Mortgage, and we're so excited. We have just moved to this new company, and we are located at 560 Noonan Crossing Bypass in Noonan next to Art and Jake's, and we have some great products. Our interest rates are better than any other companies, and we also have some great products for the VA. We can do a better deal for you with fees than any other company. We have a lot of different kind of programs.
Shopping for insurance doesn't have to be stressful. I'm Christy, owner of Ellsworth Insurance, located here in Noonan, Georgia. We're an independent agency with access to multiple carriers for home, auto, life, health, and commercial insurance. We're your one-stop shop for your insurance needs. Visit our website at www.insurewithellsworth.com or call the office at 770-755-7053 to schedule an appointment. We look forward to meeting you soon.
Moving is a big decision. Selling or buying a home in any market, but especially today's, can raise a lot of questions. Hi, I'm Amy with Killingsworth Realty. My husband Todd and I serve the Coweta and local area. Our purpose at our first meeting is to learn your goals, answer questions, and provide resources so that you can make the best decision for you and your family. Find us online at killingsworthrealty.com or call 678-525-0047 to schedule a free consultation today to discuss your real estate needs. You don't have to do this alone.
You're walking, shopping, or on your favorite trail. You get that feeling somebody's coming up on you. What do you do to be prepared in today's world? Hi, I'm Holly Reese. I'm the founder of Warrior Defenders. As a certified tactical self-defense instructor, I'm specializing in women's self-defense. All women of all ages have the ability to learn how to defend themselves effectively. With technical drills to build their survival skills, you can be your own hero. Classes and private seminars are available. Learn today to have a safer tomorrow. WarriorDefenders.com.
right, we are back after those messages from sponsors and some very relaxing elevator music that now we got to pep it up a little bit. Jennifer and I were talking in the break about the processing of the grief. I mean, we all know, we're taught at some point that grief has all these stages we go through, and there's no time or set way that they hit you. But it's important to be able to process through it. So how about if you share some of the things that you and Misha did to process?
So one thing that we did that was really important to us was going to the water. So we started with going to Cochrane Mill, going to a place where we'd hiked with Dad, and just connecting with the water, connecting with nature, being with the trees.
Right.
And then I took her to the ocean, and we found such peace, and nothing resets your nervous system like just hearing the ocean. And we started, we really found comfort in writing in the sand, you know, the large arm movements, the drawing, the powerful positive messages in the sand, and the act of that movement, which really connects me back to my love of somatic healing, because movement releases, and so it's just so wonderful to do that. And then we one morning at the beach, I had little earbuds in, and I played a song for us that was really connected with us, and nobody was out there, and I said, let's dance. And she said, I'm embarrassed. And I said, look around, there's nobody, we can do whatever we want. And so we just danced, and we were so free. And these are things like doing new things, having new experiences together, being brave together, we're afraid, but we're brave, and we're these two girls who are taking care of each other. And another wonderful thing we did was called a grief walk. And if you can find some type of labyrinth, and Serenbe here in West Georgia actually has a labyrinth in the woods, but I know there's some all over. People can even make them themselves. But the idea behind the labyrinth is you start out in one place and you're taking your time. And in this grief walk, it can go different ways for different people, right? But we can't go backwards. Right. I mean, we can. I would prefer not to. I didn't want to go backwards. My daughter tried skipping over some. I said, we can't skip through grief either. This is a whole metaphor of like what grief looks like, and it's uncomfortable, and it's hard, and it's sad, and it's guttural. It's all of these things. But when we go through it and we got to the center of the labyrinth, we hugged. We had a little ceremony. I brought some essential oils. We talked about her dad and some beautiful memories. And then it was time to leave. And she started to go back the way we came. I said, no, now you're going to go a different way. And so we went a different route back out of the labyrinth and took our time and meandered. And that was just so wonderful to share that with her. And that is, I think, in terms of what I try to encourage even with my grown sons and my extended family or my friends, is that we, it's going to look a little different for everybody, but we can get through this. Right. And we will never forget who we lost, but we still have this life to get through. And what meaning are we going to take from this, and what lessons, and where can we go with it? And for me, it was, I want to help other people. And it wasn't long after that grief walk that I signed up for the end-of-life doula certification. And because it had always actually been on my mind, I think, since I lost my mom, because we used hospice. But then I was pretty adamant, like, this feels right. And, so we did that. And otherwise, I just told my daughter, like, there are no rules. When you lose somebody so suddenly, that's true. It's like, it really kicked me into this gear of like, let's stop buying stuff and let's just experience together, experience life, because stuff means nothing, especially when you have this awkward scenario of cleaning up after someone when they're gone, and the things that meant something to them might not mean anything to you.
That's true. Where my mom passed, I was the only child, and she was very much into her Indian heritage. So we all supported her habit, and she had tons of Native American collectible dolls and things that you set up and music and all these things. And at first I felt like we had to keep every one of them. And I'm like, it was Nanny's, we have to keep it. And so I ended up with those things sitting all around my house, but it wasn't me. And so I found two different occasions. And my mom died very harshly and suddenly. I mean, it was a medical thing, but it was very unexpected. And so we had Indian things even up until the last week. There was different Indian things there. And I had right off the bat selected some that had memory to me for her, but the rest of it didn't. So what are you supposed to do with it? Because, I mean, right now I have a full-length buckskin dress that they had made for them to go to black powder reenactment things. What am I supposed to do with that? You know?
Right.
Yeah. So I've noticed as you've been talking that, first of all, like the labyrinth and having the oils and things with you and the way you led your daughter, you've been very intentional on quite a few things.
Yes.
And then with the dancing on the beach, you've been very spur of the moment, so you've been able to kind of go with the flow where it needed to be.
Yes. And then this last New Year's, we decided that we were ready to bring his ashes to the beach. Now, my husband and I had gotten married in St. Augustine, and we really loved that beach. So my daughter and I went back to St. Augustine, and it was New Year's Eve, and I can say it now because I don't know if it's illegal, but we brought his ashes, and we had that part is kind of surprising. Like I my daughter thought ashes were ashes, like ash, and she initially thought like she wanted to use it to make some art. And I said, oh honey, you know, unfortunately, and we have very blunt conversation. I'm very open with her, and I said, so, you know, I explained what remains actually are, and it's a little more like bone fragments, and it's heavy, and it, we can't create something pretty with it, but we put some little pieces, a little bit in like little crystal charms for her and my granddaughter, and then for my sons. But other than that, we took the rest and we went to the beach, and it was New Year's Eve, and we had a whole ceremony. We had a blanket, and we did sound healing. So I brought my little singing bowl, and we brought essential oils, and we brought sparklers, and she lit them, and she danced on the beach in the dark, and it was so beautiful. And then we brought his remains to the ocean, and it was 2 bags because he was a big guy, and so we had 2 bags, and one was for me and one was for her. And I put mine in, and it washed out to the ocean. And then she had hers, and she said, can I do it by myself? And I said, well, yes, of course. So she took her little Ziploc bag, and she flipped it upside down when the water wasn't there, and it went plop right in the sand. And we laughed about it, and then the water came in, and she said, can I help him go back out? And I said yes. And I just watched her as she was helping him, you know, and washing those remains out to the ocean. And I explained to her where that would go, like all over the whole world, you know, instead of being locked in my closet, like, you know, that was, or like in a you know, somewhere like it felt more beautiful and more true to him to have him be released. And so watching her in that moment just swirl those ashes back out into the ocean and helping him was this incredible just pause for me in, you know, she's doing this and she's making it through it. And that was my number one goal this whole time, was make sure this little girl is going to be okay. And that was it.
That's true. It's like I said, with our family, with my aunt, it's been 7 years now, and we still have not taken her Santa Claus statues out of the attic yet, because it upsets a couple of the people so much when we go to talk about it. So I wish we could have been more prepared. You were talking, I know you've taken your end of life doula, but you also mentioned while you were going the movement work and the releasing of the trauma and the music and the oils. I'm a big believer in my essential oils, and I'm an art therapist. I believe in many forms of art. It does help us release things 100%. That we couldn't do. And part of what you do when you do the massage therapy is explain that to us, how you do that.
So, like when Linda was talking about getting craniosacral work with me, craniosacral is in the realm of body work, but it isn't. It's different than like a traditional massage. But in that, it's very gentle. And we are helping release restrictions in the body, but also we can get on a deeper level helping people release toward trauma. And that has been, I've had many treatments. I go to see a wonderful lady named Michelle at Blue Lotus Yoga here, who is phenomenal. She's like a mentor to me in craniosacral work, but that has been so key in helping me. And through my journey of grief and the anxiety and the depression and the things that build up, where you're just like, there are days that you just don't know how you're going to get through, I found movement really helped me. So I would dance. I would put on music. I would just dance. I would move my body. I would do flowing yoga. I would breathe. I was very intentional, and I was very mindful of sitting with the feelings, breathing with them, and letting them go when I'm ready. And so that connection really, I saw how it helped me. And in somatic work and craniosacral work, everything's very gentle. And I mean, when we've gone through trauma and we've gone through loss, it is very important to just be gentle. Like, we need to nurture ourselves. Our nervous systems are through the roof. You know, our fight or flight is kicked in, and it might not shut off for people. You know, I have seen that firsthand with friends who, like, maybe their situation isn't settling very quickly after the loss of somebody, and that sympathetic nervous system response doesn't shut off, and they're like stuck, and that can be devastating. And that ripple effect of how that can affect the people in the household, the children, you know. And so this is, you know, on a broader spectrum, like, where I really want to take, I think the end of life care and the craniosacral and somatic work is helping people who may not have the economic, you know, ability to get this kind of help, because with that healing, I feel like we can stop, like, that generational trauma and hurt. You know, and I've been very active with my own daughter, and you know, I work with her every day. She gets a massage every day somewhere. She loves her feet massaged.
Do you adopt anybody?
I know, right?
All right. So we've gotten the message that we need to be very intentional about those things, and grief and stress and depression and any mental health concern affects your body and how it works.
100%.
All right. So if they are interested in contacting you for that, how do they get a hold of you?
Yes. Well, they can visit us at seaglasstherapy.com. That is where I practice as a massage therapist and craniosacral therapist, and I just completed my 3rd level of craniosacral classes in somato-emotional release, which is beautiful work, and gets into dialoguing, imagery, you know, helping people. As we build our relationship together, as me as their therapist, I'm facilitating their own healing. So very gentle,
Sounds
very
great.
beautiful stuff.
All right, I have to end this on a note of something that has just really stayed in my mind since the very beginning of the thing. So you know it's probably going to be irreverent or kind of weird. But first, I want to thank Jennifer for coming.
Thank you so much.
And your story is very inspirational. I love the way that you have worked with your daughter, and I know that it will inspire other people to do the same.
Thank you.
The comment that's been on my mind the whole time is when Linda said she got cranial sacrum therapy. Is this about time somebody worked on that brain? I love her. Her brain stays moving so fast.
And you know, it was the most awesome experience. And I know you said that when you were working on me, one of my feet or foot was raising, and that had never happened, and you knew I wasn't doing it. That just says I was really in the moment, you know, and I felt so incredible afterwards that I know I'll have it again. And
bringing in that parasympathetic nervous system.
You know,
just to have her slow down long enough to have someone be able to touch her is a miracle in itself, because Linda stays very busy, but we love her greatly and we're glad she's on our side. All right.
Well, I love connecting hearts, and I just want to get the word out there to all of our women that, you know what, Margie is the one. I mean, you can bring your thoughts, your feelings to her. It's all confidential, and she is a miracle worker, and I just love her.
Well, I'm going to close our broadcast by saying it's always Jesus that's a miracle worker,
Yes.
because I'm not capable of anything.
Oh,
I don't.
no.
Most of the time, I don't even like to talk to people. I like to stay in my craft room.
Well, let me say one more thing. God is good, and He brings the right people into our life at the right time.
I agree. I agree. So thank you all for listening. Thank you guys for coming, and we will be back with you next week.
You have been tuned in to Heart Radio, presented by Connecting Hearts Network, connecting women to resources and one another. Located at 3 Bullsboro Drive here in Noonan. Tune in next week for another episode of Heart Radio with Margie Conway.